Hello, and welcome to the Sierra Speaker Series brought to you by the California State Parks and the Sierra State Parks Foundation. My name is Denise, and I'm the Events and Communications Manager for the Foundation. The Sierra Speaker Series shares and connects the rich natural and cultural history of the Lake Tahoe Donner area with the community. Please donate to the Foundation today to support the interpretation, restoration, and preservation of the park system in the Lake Tahoe Donner area. Your tax-deductible donation will be kept locally and applied to priority projects. Please visit www.sierrastateparks.org to see how you can get involved and access upcoming events. With me today is Dave Depuy. Dave is truly involved in the community, where he serves on the board of the new Museum of Truckee History and Tahoe Silicon Mountains. And he volunteers with the Truckee-Donner Historical Society and Truckee-Donner Railroad Society. Dave has invested a good chunk of time and research to bring us this great visual presentation of Truckee's history and development. Without further ado, Dave, please take it away.
Thank you, Denise. Okay, so we're going to talk about the last 60 years of Truckee's history. And I'm going to do so in highlighting three significant events. These milestones that I've chosen are reflective of our community, but they're not the only milestones that have occurred. But due to time limitations, I'm going to restrict it to three. So the first one I'm going to highlight are the Winter Olympics that occurred at Squaw Valley in 1960. The second thing I'm going to talk about is the town's incorporation in 1992 and 1993. And I'm going to also speak to the town of Truckee as it exists today. So let's go to the Olympics. So Alex Cushing became associated with Squaw Valley in 1948 by working with Wayne Paulson of Reno. Wayne had been a ski jumper and a fly fisherman and was very familiar with Squaw Valley from the early 30s. And Alex came to the Truckee area through his affiliation with Wayne, and after World War II, he wanted to do more than be a Wall Street lawyer. So in 1948, they formed the Ski Corporation of California, and Wayne Paulson was the president, and Alex Cushing was the secretary. And as they're putting these things together, eventually Alex Cushing became president, and he called by doing so through a meeting of the shareholders in 1949. And so Paulson lost his presidency and his 640 acres, and Squaw Valley became opened at Thanksgiving in 1949. By 1954, Alex had asked for support from the governor of California, Goodwin Knight, and he was pledged $1 million of support. And so off Cushing went to the International Olympic Committee, and at the meeting, it put Squaw Valley up against the real powerhouses of Europe. Innsbruck would be from Austria, St. Moritz from Switzerland, and Chamonix from France. Chamonix and St. Moritz had already had the Olympics, and Austria is, of course, well known for their skiing climate and environment. I was once there, in which on a Saturday morning, the local TV was broadcasting the high school slalom, slalom races. So skiing is part of the Austrian culture. In 1956, the International Olympic Committee issued a preliminary progress report, which picked Squaw Valley to have the Olympics as the plan, with Innsbruck as a backup in case things went wrong. And after 5 more progress reports, by 1958, Squaw Valley was approved, and the 8th Winter Olympics were chosen to run in Squaw Valley from February 18th through the 28th of 1960. Now this is pretty bold, because if you think about what was here in 1955, it wasn't much. There was a great mountain, and there was one chairlift, Squaw Peak, and there was a bold vision. So that's all there was. So this is quite the event to have them move forward to choose Squaw Valley. Let's talk about the sports that were here. Skiing included alpine and cross country for both men and women. Ice hockey for men. That would change in the Olympics later, where there's now ice hockey for both men and women. In 1960, there was ski jumping for men, various lengths. Figure skating for men, women, and pairs. So that's, I think, the first Olympic sport where the men and women were allowed to touch each other. Speed skating for men and women. The biathlon, which is cross-country skiing and shooting with rifles, that was introduced into the Olympics after World War II in 1948. There were also 3 sports that were approved for the 1960 program, but due to time and money considerations, I believe that bobsledding and luge were not included, and curling, I think, didn't have the necessary 8 teams. All right, so let's look at the worldwide participation. So there were 30 countries that participated. I'm sorry if that screen's a little bit small or a little bit hard to read, but they're the names that you would expect, with one exception, and that's Greece. Greece is always invited to participate in the Olympics, and they they were here for the Olympics at Squaw Valley, but they didn't participate in any of the events. All right, let's talk about the medals. So at the time, the Soviet Union was called the USSR. They did very well at the 1960 Olympics. And this is in part because they had put so much emphasis on it. Just 8 months before, there was the Nikita Khrushchev and Richard Nixon kitchen debates, in which there was a discussion of who had a better government, who was going to be the government that wins the world's hearts and minds over time. And so the Soviet Union wanted to show that they had the superior program. And so they won a total of 21 medals at this Olympics, which, when you consider that in the previous 7 Olympics, they'd only won 16 medals, you can see how much emphasis they'd put on it. And so the other note is that Norway did not do as well as they had typically done. You can see that they had 6 medals at this particular Olympics, and in the previous 7 Olympics, they'd had 88 medals. All right, let's look at the venues. So this is a picture of Squaw Valley. Imagine that you're up in the air, floating, say, somewhere above the Squaw Valley Inn. And so here on the right, in chair 14 is really the Squaw Peak chair. So that was the first chair. And here's KT 22. And then this third one here is what they refer to as the Papoose chair, which we would think of as the Red Dog chair. So very, very close to that. All right, let's move on to the events. So the first event that ran was the ladies downhill. That came off of KT 22 down through what they refer to as the GS Bowl. I'm sorry, as the downhill bowl, and down here through exhibition. The next event was the men's giant slalom, which also ran off of KT 22. Came off of the nose, then through the GS Bowl, and down through the east face. The men's downhill was next, and that was up off the top. And so they had by this time added in the head wall chair. And so if you go out the back of the head wall chair through Chicken Bowl, you end up over by Siberia, and then down through the Siberian Bowl, down Mountain Run, through Mogul Hill, ending at about where the today's head wall chair would start. Okay, the next event was the ladies giant slalom, which ran off of Papoose chair, which at that time was considered to be Red Dog. taking a right-hand turn at the dog leg, and then coming down the red dog face. The last two events were the slalom, and the men's slalom ran here off of a Palma lift, which looks almost like where exhibition is today, and that ran into the base of KT-22. And then the ladies slalom came down red dog, the red dog face. All right, let's look at the base venues. Here at the base venues, we can see the finish area for the ladies downhill, men's giant slalom, and men's slalom were all together next to the KT-22 chair. The men's downhill isn't really here at the base. It's a little bit further up. That's what that arrow is pointing out. And then the ladies giant slalom and ladies slalom were next to the ski jumps. The second area I'll point out is the Olympic Village. Olympic Village was the first time that the athletes all stayed in the same area, the same village. There were 6 waxing buildings, which points out to how secretive the waxing process was. At the time, wax was also referred to as dope. So it was everybody had their special dope. And then the last area that I'll point out is the Olympic ski area, the 2 practice rinks or rinks out here, and then the speed skating oval. And so looking at that, we can say that it looks very similar as it does today for 2 out of the 3 areas. This area here, of course, has been turned into a large parking lot. I'll point out that the Blythe Memorial Arena was named after Charles Blythe. He was the chairman of the California Olympic Commission from up until August of 1959, when he passed away with heart failure. I'll also note that here's the speed skating oval that you could see actually from inside the Blythe Arena. It was an open arena on this one side. Okay, another venue that we had was McKinney Creek. McKinney Creek is where they had the cross country and the biathlon events. We call it biathlon is the combination of cross country and shooting. It's located up on Lake Tahoe's west shore, near where Homewood and Tahoma meet. So halfway in between those two is McKinney Creek. And so here's the creek itself and the starting area. And then you can see all the courses running out into the countryside, and they would have different loops that would be associated with different events. To pull off all these events, they had lots of talent come in, one of which was the pageantry chairman. That was Walt Disney. Walt was a skiing enthusiast, and he brought showmanship to the first televised Olympics. He did things like at a flag raising, he took care of the flag raising and parades and official welcomes and doves of peace and all sorts of great things. He brought high school musicians in from all over the state. It was quite the affair. Besides Walt Disney helping out, we also had assistance from the military. They were here with their Jeeps and their other military vehicles, and that was important because several days before the start of the Olympics, there was a melting of the snow, and it was quite the flood over in the parking lot. But fortunately, later the snow picked up, and so now we use the soldiers to help pack the course. So that was one of the things that they helped us. And the last thing they helped with was the parking. In order to handle the 9,000 cars per day, they did snow compaction, in which they used M29 cargo carriers, which had the treads on them, and they went out and they compacted the snow out there in the meadow Papoose Meadow. And this is great that they were able to handle the 9,000 cars, which over the 2 weeks accounted for 250,000 visitors. Some of you may know that the M29 is also referred to as the Weasel. And so over at Alpine, when you see the Weasel Run, that's really referring to the M29 cargo carriers rather than the M. Let's go back to Blythe Arena. I mentioned that it had three sides that were permanent, 1, 2, and 3. But also on the fourth side, you could move in movable bleachers, which they did for the figure skating and for the hockey. Just as a point of reference, there was here's where the movable bleachers were, and there was another stadium that also had movable seats that was built by the same company, Pittsburgh Des Moines Steel Company, and that was a Candlestick Park for the 49ers, which was first used in 1970. Originally, Candlestick was an open stadium, and they closed it in, which helped with the swirling winds in the late 60s. Okay, let's tell some stories. And I'm going to tell 5 stories. So here's the first one, and that was as we talked about, the weather was threatening to be bad and had almost too little snow. And then just as they were coming up on February 18th, it snowed very heavily. And so that whole day, it was very thick and coming down, but really hard. And yet at the last minute, it paused for about an hour, and they had the opening ceremony, and then it continued snowing. So that was the good news there. Second one is that Walt Disney fell in love with the rocks above high in Squaw Valley, and he used these rocks as a basis for his Big Thunder mountain ride in Disneyland in Southern California. These rocks are visible today from the tram, which, as you know, or you may know, opened in the late 60s, 1968. So he had to do the long walk. This was not an easy hike to get up to those rocks. And then the third story on this slide is that there was another Miracle on Ice that was really the predecessor to the 1980 Miracle on Ice. Recall that in the 1980 Olympics, that the USA won gold. Well, in 1960, they also won gold and were the underdogs for that. They won the gold medal by beating the USSR and Czechoslovakia. This was highly controversial due to the fact that the Cold War was at its height, and the USSR players were dedicated full time to being hockey players, and the USA players were just college players. So this was a big deal, and so it was wonderful, or a miracle on ice, so to speak, that the USA won gold. Okay, moving on, let's talk about Blythe Arena. As I mentioned, it's no longer there in the parking lot or it's no longer there at Squaw Valley. Where to go? Well, the ice arena had a roof that was suspended by steel wires on these external columns. You can see them over here on the side. There were 16 of these, so 8 on each side. And this created a large area inside with no internal columns. And the way that they figured out the snow loading was that the roof was designed to melt the snow using the heat generated from the ice refrigeration units. When you make cold ice, you generate heat that you have to expel. And in this case, they used it to melt the ice on the roof. Well, during 1982, there were some leaks in the roof. And so the US Forest Service went out for bid. In the bid that came back, the cheapest one that would guarantee waterproofing was a tar and gravel solution to prevent the leaks. But with the tar and gravel installed, the snow did not melt. And so the roof collapsed from the weight of snow in March of 1983. The last story I'll point out is that in preparation for the international visitors, there was a concern about the moral temptations of Nevada and Truckee from the international community. And so Truckee closed the last of its gentlemen's clubs on Jaboom Street in the late 50s. So what was the impact of the Olympics on Truckee? Well, the first was that world-class skiing was now available in Northern California, creating a tourist draw. The second thing is that it moved the center of North Lake Tahoe's winter sports away from Donner Summit, Sugar Bowl, Donner Ski Ranch, Soda Springs, etc., to Squaw Valley, Alpine Meadows, and in 1972 to include North Star. The last is that it brought, the Olympics brought recognition, jobs, and money to the Truckee Corridor. Okay, so let's move on from the Olympics now to talk about the town of Truckee. So the town of Truckee was established in 1863 and incorporated in the 1992-93 timeframe. And so let me give you some background on that as to why the town was incorporated. So here is a map of the town of, of the county of Nevada. It was formed in 1851 during the gold rush. And you'll see that the western side, which is over here on the left, where Grass Valley and Nevada City are, is has got lots of attention as to the river drainages and a lot of effort and a lot of the management comes out of the west. And you can see that Truckee over on the right-hand side is kind of a last-minute thought. There's a huge different set of differences between the west and the east. In the west, the elevation for some of these areas is down in the 200-foot level. And over on the Truckee side, and for example, up at Castle Peak, we get up to 9,100 feet. So dramatic differences in elevation leads to dramatic differences in climate. The other thing that we pointed out is this looks like a gun. So here's a picture of George Donner's double-barreled pistol. This particular pistol was not used as the outline for the shape of the county, but it is interesting. So Truckee was feeling neglected by Western Nevada County in the 80s. And part of this was related to poor road maintenance. And so the town used to joke about this. One of the ways they joked about it was they said that there was to be a fishing contest or a trout contest that was to be held out of the potholes in the town. Potholes, chuck holes are the same thing, just for some of you that have seen that before, but potholes were one of the jokes of the town. And in fact, the first mayor said that potholes were so bad on Jaboom Street that the police could tell if you were drunk, because if you were driving straight down the street without swerving, you must be drunk. So that's a story from Kathleen Egan, the Truckee's first mayor. Another thing that Truckee was feeling neglected about was the timely snow removal. When the storms come in, it can really shut the town down. And so the faster you're able to remove the snow, the faster the town's able to get back on its feet. And it was feeling that it could do, Truckee, the town, was feeling that it could do a better job than Nevada County. Another thing that it was upset about was land use and zoning rules. Let me give you an example of that. Kmart applied for putting in a large box store in Truckee, and that was approved by the county board. All 5 members were from the Western County, and the Truckee people didn't want Kmart. And so the Mountain Area Preservation Foundation was organized in 1987. It's called MAP. It is still in existence today. And they filed, they asked the developer for environmental impact reports that tied them up, that slowed them down. And eventually the developer decided not to develop the Kmart here. And it eventually led to 40,000 square foot limit for Truckee commercial buildings. This is still with us today, which is why you'll see no Costco or Walmart or Kmart here in Truckee. So, so with this interest in local government, they decided to have a vote as to whether they should be incorporated. And so the vote in November of 1992 was yes for incorporation at 72%. And then there was a question as to whether we should be called the city of Truckee or the town of Truckee, and the town of Truckee with its alliteration won out. And so the town of Truckee is declared in the Sierra Sun as of November of 1992. And you'll see on our logo incorporation in 1993, because what happened was with this vote to incorporate, they didn't elect any officials. And so what they did was they then had a vote in March of 1993. And that was the first time they could actually move forward with doing town-like things. All right, so what happens with incorporation? The population skyrockets. So here it is, the census in 1870 is 1,600 people, and it kind of bounces along around 2,000 people up until the Winter Olympics, a slight bump, but not much, and then it incorporates and off it goes. And we don't know the exact numbers for 2020, but I'm guessing on the order of magnitude of 20,000 people are full-time residents here in Truckee. And so it's been quite the wild ride since incorporation. So why did the population explode? So I'll offer three ideas. The first is that the prosperity of Silicon Valley allowed for second home ownership in a world-class alpine playground. And so, so there was money available for the second home ownership. Second thing is the weekend road trips from San Francisco to Truckee was approximately 60 minutes shorter than to Lake Tahoe. So that was good news. And then the last thing was the Truckee Town Council seemed to be more predictable than the wild ride of Lake Tahoe with its plethora of rules. By that, I mean that the Truckee Regional Planning Agency, which was formed in 1969 to protect Lake Tahoe from environmental degradation, grew stronger and stronger until a building moratorium hit in 1984. So the incorporation of Truckee made Truckee a safer investment for those people that had money and were looking for a place to land. Okay, so let's move on to the town of Truckee as it exists today. And so I'm going to discuss it today as we look at it in sort of a positioning statement. And I'm going to say that Truckee, to some degree, could be best described as a historic mountain town. And we all know about the history, but let me just review some of those highlights. The first is that the early Californians came through here in 1844. This was the Stevenson Townsend Murphy wagon train. It was followed by many other wagon trains that went over the passes. Some came through the Oregon Trail, of course, but a lot of them came through Truckee, including the Donner Party in 1846. Second thing is the Transcontinental Railroad came through here in 1869. There's some wonderful highlights of that around, and I can show those in more detail to you. And then the Historic District, which has been registered with the U.S. Department of the Interior and the National Park Service, has given us a number for our downtown. And thanks to the work of Barbara Zazinski and Heidi Sprout of the Truckee-Donner Historical Society, it looks like we're going to get the Veterans Memorial Hall and the Rocking Stone approved for as an historical landmark as well. And here's a picture of Truckee at Bridge Street. So you all know this. Up here would be about where Moody's would be today, and Bar of America, and of course the hillside up above on the town of Truckee, as it appeared in 1876. So we've been around a long time. And we have lots of museums to show off the history. Here's the old jail that was founded in 1874. I'm sorry, 1875. Railroad Museum looks like a caboose when you walk up to it. Here's the depot, and at the eastern edge of the depot is the Museum of Truckee History. Two other museums that are nearby are the Donner Memorial State Park, which is just a short drive, and then, oops, and I'm in the wrong place. Okay. And then there's also the Railroad Crane and Rotary Snowplow Park, which is just a short walk away. Okay. Let me also claim that not only is it a historic town, it's a mountain town. Here's the highest tunnel on the Transcontinental Railroad. It's Tunnel 6, just coming over through the Donner Pass. And I'll also point out that we have where the Sierra Nevada granite meets the Great Basin sand. Great Basin covers this huge area out through Nevada into Utah, up into Oregon. And you can see literally the dividing line is this yellow line where here to the right is solid granite and here to the left would be the sand. Embedded in the sand are some beautiful granite rocks, but the granite monolith is here to the right. But I'll claim that maybe Truckee is also a modern town, not just a historical mountain town. And so let me talk about what makes a town modern, and I'll do that in several different ways. One is I'll claim that putting together a motto or a decision-making process that is very respectful of others, in which we treat others with respect and courtesy and fairness, and we approach issues with creativity and innovation and open and honest communications is a modern technique, is a modern way to do that. It's also the way to refer to a street, but that isn't what I'm thinking of here. Another way that I'll consider as modern is that we play well with others. What do I mean by that? I mean that prior to Truckee being incorporated, the residents needed services, for example, fire district, which was founded in 1894, or sanitation, or electricity, or cemeteries, etc. And so in order to offer those districts services, when Truckee was founded in 1993, instead of closing down the districts and bringing those services into the town, they set those up as something that we would overlay or that we would cooperate with. Let me show you how that cooperation works in a map. So here's a map of the town of Truckee in 3 of the 9 districts: the public utility district, the sanitary district, and the fire district. So the town's map is drawn here in purple. The PUD is this hatched area. Sanitation's in the green. So if you're in the green area, you get your sanitary services from the Truckee Sanitation District, and the red would be the fire district. So you can see that the maps don't exactly line up, but that there's a lot of cooperation among all the services in the districts, so between the town and the districts. Another way that the town was modern is they provide outdoor recreational activities and opportunities, for example, hiking and biking trails. So lots of trails have been created, and they're in the process of maintenance and being upgraded. So lots of good things going on with hiking and biking in the area. And lastly, I'll point out that we have a very active land trust in the area, which is to preserve the land for generations to come. So in summary, I'll claim that Truckee is a modern historic mountain town, and it's historic because we've got all these great things in the area, And we're modern not only because we have a respectful way for management, special districts, biking and hiking, a vibrant downtown and active land trust, but we have lots of roundabouts. Okay. So with that, I say thank you very much. Thank you to the town of Truckee for your assistance in the town, and to the Sierra Speaker Series, and to others. So thank you so much. And I also encourage you to come visit the new Museum of Truckee History. Okay. Denise, let me hand it back to you. Are there any questions?
Yes, thank you, Dave, for that presentation. It was very informing. I always look forward to these presentations because there's always something new to learn about the town and its rich history. All right, so thank you for attending the Sierra Speaker Series brought to you by the California State Parks and the Sierra State Parks Foundation. The Sierra Speaker Series shares and connects the rich and cultural history of the Lake Tahoe Donner area with the community. Please donate to the foundation today to support the interpretation, preservation, and restoration of the park system in the Lake Tahoe Donner area. Your tax-deductible donation will be kept locally and applied to priority projects. Please visit sierrastateparks.org to see how you can get involved and see upcoming events. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments section or email us and we can get back to you. All right. Thank you so much, Dave, for that.
Thank you.